All right. Hey, there's John Chen here. Double header, back-to-back interviews today. And I got to go fix the other titles because Sherry is not Alex. This is Alex. I'm excited today because we're actually going to tour a new platform. What I've loved to tell people now is like, well, that's one of the first decisions you need to make in your virtual meeting is what is your platform? And the best thing about this pandemic is that one, it advanced IT over 7 years. Going forward about what people can do, and that's given way to many new platforms. So our good friend Mike Madden was able to introduce me to this gentleman. He's the chief CEO. He's the CEO and the chief geek at LexGo. Let's welcome the one and only Alex Bratton.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Alex. Now, look, you do get geek status because let's see how many of you can identify the things in the background. I definitely see Iron Man, BB-8. I'm not sure where the cube is. I see C-3PO.
I'm sorry, you don't recognize an Infinity Stone, really?
Oh my God! Oh, my bad. I'll blame my camera. Is that Halo too? Is that like a Halo mask?
You nailed it. You nailed it. I actually used some of this background material in some of my interactive how to engage folks in an online way of, hey, who can name more than one of these? So you nailed a bunch of them. Nice job.
Thank you. So side fact, it's really fun. I took my kids to a concert here, the Seattle Symphony called Play. And what they did is the Seattle Symphony Orchestra played over a dozen hits from the top video games.
I love it.
Right. And so that turns out I'm sitting next to the guy at intermission. And I'm just like, hi, what's going on? Right. Turns out he's the guy who wrote the music for Halo.
Oh,
I'm an ex.
Some of the best stuff around. Nice.
Yeah. And then he said, I attended this conference in Japan when it first appeared. And he goes, I sat next to the guy who created the music for Mario Brothers. And he goes, I was awestruck, right? He created iconic stuff using 8 bits. And he goes, I just feel like I'm cheating because I've got so much power now than he does. But yeah, so it was really great. My kids got to talk to the guy who created music for Halo.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think that's actually a great example that the music in Halo, I don't know if everybody's gotten to it, it gives you some of that feeling that you got from the original Star Wars symphonies. It sets the tone for everything, and it's that multi-sensory experience that's so important.
Oh, I know. Like you said, Star Wars, and I can already hear the orchestral orchestral note, right? Which is the first song, the first note that's played in Star Wars, and it's genius, right? That all that stuff that's music. We just talked about a whole another program about the power of music. So I love that you do that. I'm glad bringing music here into virtual meetings. I think is such an important factor. That goes along here. So while we go along with this, right? Some of my friends don't know you, Alex. So why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
I am, as you said, the CEO, although more importantly, founder and chief geek. And it's that chief geek part that's the most important for me of LexGo. I have had a chance to start a number of different companies, but my passion is helping people thrive at work by applying technology. And most recently, what that's really come down to with regard to LexGo, this platform, is how do we help drive connection and community at work? And I actually, rewinding a little bit from your intro, I would actually beg to differ that I think the most important thing when folks are thinking about this future of virtual isn't the platform choice. It's actually, what am I trying to accomplish and what's the experience I'm trying to deliver? And then that tells you which platform to go to.
I agree.
But we can talk more about that.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. Every consulting I ever do in any virtual meeting is like, what are you trying to do?
Exactly.
Because there are so many choices. We could live stream. We could be on Zoom. We could be on, there's like a whole collection of things. And like sometimes it's not even the right answer. Right? Like
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm really glad that, as you said, we've had so much innovation on all these platforms and we needed them all over the past couple of years, but it's also really had the opportunity to shine a light that there are different objectives. And for those, I mean, as you can see, this looks probably a little different than things that most folks have seen. And that was really intentional. We actually had some drivers around that. And it's one of my core values is simplicity. How do we make this experience easy? And if you want to call it, here's the metaverse in 2 dimensions.
Oh, that's a big statement. right?
Well, we can go deep on that.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so for you, how would you define the metaverse?
See, that gets really fuzzy because the metaverse, like VR and everything else, there is no one definition because everybody has taken them and mushed them together. The metaverse to me is a visual, three-dimensional place to interact. And I would leave it there. And the types of interactions we're going to define all kinds of really interesting stuff over the next 20 years.
Yeah, if you define it like that, I mean, to me, I feel like I'm already doing that, which is like I spend a good portion of my day here, and the best part is like in this studio stadium thing that I built is that I can go around the world. I can be in Saudi Arabia, I can be in LA, I can be in Orlando, and I don't have any traffic, and it can be engaging if you're doing it right. Is really one of the keys. So if you have
That's the key.
right, you got the
Hmm.
foundation of the tech, right? And then on top of that, the techniques, then you can really get a lot done.
And
And
the magic word there was that interactivity piece,
yeah,
because we can, just want spraying content. Yeah, we can do that. But if it is about the interactivity piece, technically, a lot of us have been in the metaverse for years.
yeah, well, like a phone call can technically be the metaverse in that way, right? Because you're connecting
Hmm.
around the world somewhere else. And that's why, what I love too is how communications has really drive technology, which led me to this belief. We as humans, we're designed to connect. Right, this whole technology is bringing us further apart. Like, why is texting so popular? Why is phone so popular? Why is video calls so? It's all about connecting with somebody else, whether it's your family member or coworker or something like that. To me, that's really driven a lot of these innovations. So actually, let's go back through the little bit here too. What drove you to create LexGo, and what have you seen? What have you innovated since you started?
And actually, it's that word connection. So I also founded 20 years ago a technology consulting business that's building employee-facing tech for the Fortune 500, Lextech. So pilots at major airlines, salespeople out there, it's tools people use to do their jobs. So employee experience. That team had always been highly distributed. And before the pandemic, what I saw was there could be a culture being created. We had an office in office versus everywhere else. And we didn't want that. So we made two decisions: to shut our office down in 2019 before the pandemic,
Ooh.
and that we needed a way to come together in virtual experiences. So we applied that team's expertise on employee experiences, and we created this to essentially propagate culture for a technology organization.
So tell us.
Rapidly,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
and it brought a couple of other business leaders in at that time as we were moving in. We actually moved in March of 2020. So we were incredibly lucky. The timing worked out really well for the company. But bringing some other folks in from the outside, they came in and experienced it from a digital office perspective, and they kept asking me, "So when can we have it?" So we quickly commercialized it and spun out a brand new company, and
Uh,
LexGo was born.
so LexGo was formed out of Lextech.
Exactly.
And why is Lex so important to you?
Well, as a part of my name, Alex. So I've
Uh,
historically had a couple of companies that played off of that. LexCorp wasn't available, so a little of the other geeky stuff, but LexTech was, yes.
don't tell me you did Lex Lemonade or Lex Newspaper Carrier. I
Didn't
mean,
go there. Didn't go there.
well, cool. Well, tell us a little bit what we're seeing. So again, we have it open here on this on my other computer over here. So there's a whole board over here. Make sure I can see if I get the right way. All right. So there's this briefing center and of course some videos. So why don't you explain what are we seeing, and most importantly, why did you design it this way?
So if we look at really the two key principles of, number one, simplicity, and then the second is, how do we drive, and I'm going to put a qualifier, worthwhile interactions, because I think there's been a ton of interactions the past 2-3 years that have been not worth it people's time. So how do we focus on worthwhile interaction, not death by meeting? And what you're seeing over on the left side there was really the incredibly simplified version of, how do we take some of the physical world, the positive parts of the physical world, and bring them into the virtual?
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? It's the visibility. So if you think you're in an office space and you look around, I can see who's here. I can see who's talking with whom. I can walk up the hallway and poke my head in for a second and step out. Those type of basic interactions without needing, and before we built this, we actually lived in VR for 6 months to see, hey, could we do this? No, tech's not there yet. But we really tried to look at, simply how do we do it?
Wait,
So
I'll
what you're,
pause right there for a second. You
please,
said you attempted VR for 6 months, right? This is early on. What, this is like 2018, 2019?
this would be 18, 19, yeah.
And you said it was not there. To you, what was not there? Because I kind of agree with you, but I'm just curious about. I mean, you really tried it for 6 months. I would love to hear.
Oh yeah. So the fundamental was for a focused meeting. You and I are talking. Maybe we're manipulating a 3D object in front of us. Okay. Typing with a full headset on, hard. Can't see the keyboard. Can't see your desktop. Sharing your desktop, sharing content, sharing anything beyond just us interacting. It absolutely had the cool factor. So it was fun. But manipulating information, sharing information, really, really crunchy. It's still there today. We're going to get there. It's going to happen. I think it's actually going to be augmented reality first, not virtual reality. I cannot wait to be able to look around a table, you and I physically next to each other, and 3 people who are remote, and I can actually see all 3 of them and you at the same time. That's when this becomes mainstream.
And Workroom Horizons, right? Quest version of it is doing something where it is allowing a window for your computer, your keyboard, and your mouse, and then it has a connection, some software that will bring one of your screens on to be the virtual screen inside of VR. It's trying. Again, I've had
trying is the right word. Yeah.
I have 6 screens, so it doesn't know which one to pick up. It's always picking up the wrong one. And so, yeah, so I can still do things better here in like flat screen universe rather than VR. But
exactly. And that's really the key is what is it that the third dimension's adding?
Yeah.
Other than being cool, and I'm a video gamer, so I get that. And yes, moving around in a virtual environment, but I don't want a game controller to be able to have a conversation with somebody.
To type, like the things that we do in work, which is type and mouse. It's amazing when you go back and think about the input devices. One day it's going to happen, which is like how a screen replaced a physical tactile keyboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen with our keyboard and mouse, but I'm still with you, which is it's not.
I'll be ready for that. Wire me up when I can just think it. I'm good there.
And haptics, right? Like you got some kind of glovey thing, like yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's just a lot of friction. So essentially, early days of VR and even today, it adds friction to our interaction, and I'm all about removing friction. So it's not ready yet.
Yeah. If you've ever watched me or somebody else who's very adept at a computer and move quickly, you get it, right? Because that's what like my parents always said, like, the video game's going to burn your brain out. It turned out that was actually the best skill I had because I can usually move on a computer 2 to 4 times faster than most people because of my video game training.
It really helps, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, what did you just do here? Because you also find all the shortcuts too as a video gamer. So yeah.
So anyway. It was so taking so all of that, I'll call it 3-dimensional baggage.
Yeah.
And some of that baggage of the physical world and the baggage of the tools that I'm glad that existed, but I don't ever want to see another waiting for meeting host screen in my life. That is a lost opportunity because when I walk into a physical conference room, if there's going to be four of us there, you're in the room already, you and I get to have a conversation. That's where connection happens. That's where organizational culture happens, is it's all the between moments. And we missed that. That's what this map helps with. You get a feeling by being able to look around, who's here? Who should I not bug? In your prior program, you were talking about time zone challenges. Nobody ever knows what 1 o'clock meetings mean. Exactly. Is this early or late for this person? Are they really here? Let's just make it easy to see that. And if they're not in the office, let's not bug them.
Well, Alex, you love this thing that I pulled from Microsoft. This is what I really learned at Microsoft. And feel free to use this, which is the most important meeting is the meeting before the meeting after the meeting. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly it. And that's why being able to jump in a couple minutes early or hang around a few minutes at the end after people go up, that's why we really tried to make this the simple version of physical. You've got these rooms, or in a virtual event, you could call them tables. And you just, the individual's in control. That's the other paradigm shift for the industry, is that most platforms out there, it's about the speaker, not about the participant. This is all about the participant. They move themselves around. They're in charge.
You make me consider turning back on the ability to meet without the host in my Zoom meetings, right? Because I turned it on originally,
Mm-hmm.
then I turned it off, right? And now I'm considering turning it back on, right? Because there is a
I
part where it's like
mm-hmm.
you should have the room ready before people come in. And sometimes I am late, so why don't you let people hang out, right? We actually did. We actually had a
Mm-hmm.
meeting fail. So I think you saw my post, right? Which is I'm waiting for the host, and I just said this is the
That
death,
was it. Yep.
which is this is a predictor to me of like how bad the meeting was going to be. And then 7 of us met without the host being there, and actually had a valid meeting. And yeah, maybe
And
that's
that's powerful. That so whatever platform, you've got to be able to engage. You nailed it. The meeting before the meeting after the meeting, the 2 minutes where I'm not even a part of the meeting, but oh, I know they're talking about a new customer. Can I poke my head in and ask them a question?
right. Yeah.
That's the new reality we're moving toward. Is
Okay.
that level of flexibility, and that again, simple but flexible. That's what this map on the left side is really all about. Because of that transparency, I'm in control and I can take actions like I might in the physical world.
Oh, this is, actually, Alex, you'll love this. This refers to me to what I call play date culture, which is kids used to just walk over to the other house and say, "What's up?" Right, and play. And now it's all like Alex, are you free from 10:30 run to 10:45 so we can play?
What's your calendar look like? Yep.
What does your calendar look like? And so, because like in this case, right, you like at regular work, we serendipitously bump into each other. This is another genius part of Microsoft designs. The original buildings were an X, right? And guess what was in the
Mm-hmm.
guess what was in the middle?
I'm assuming the bathrooms or the cafeteria.
The bathrooms, the food, the receptionist, and the supply room, right?
It was exactly what Steve Jobs did with Pixar in their redesign. Exact same thing. How do we bring people together where they can actually connect?
And I've had this concept since like in the early part pre-pandemic that says you need to learn how to digitally bump into each other. This is why
Yes.
chat platforms like Slack and Teams are so powerful, because people are just like, let me just Slack this person, see if they're there. And then you can like grab them and jump them into a meeting. So it's what I call digitally bumping into each other. It's like a digital hallway. Even though you're 100 different places, you can find if that person's present and interact with them. And I think your thing is doing this too, right?
And that's exactly it. So if you and I are in a conversation here, and if I look down at Jay down in conference room 1, I know he's in the office space. I can actually click on him. I could send him a quick invite. We call it a virtual tap on the shoulder. Ask him to join us for a second.
Hit tap in. I like that. So we can jump around, right? Are we going to jump around?
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump over to audience table 1 over on our right there, so we can see what would this look like in the audience. So once I get over there, if you want to click the join button and follow me, come on in.
Okay, I'm jumping.
All right, and you may need to turn your camera and microphone back on because you jumped in just a little quick for me. You nailed it.
Okay, let's here, right?
So what we're looking at here is, so again, one of the things that we've set up, and so I was trying to jump over and turn my camera on, because if you walk into a room with someone who already has their camera on, yours turns on. The same way that in the physical world, walking into a conference room with a bag over your head will be deemed weird. In this case, joining a video conversation without the ability to communicate with people, we deem that as a little weird.
Now we're going to show like how old school we are. Do you remember the Unknown comic?
Oh, yes, with the bag over the head. Exactly. Yep.
You need a character like that to show up. All right.
You know what? We're going to have to work on that. I like it. And so what we're seeing above us here, do you still have the map open on your streaming side?
Let me open up my map again. Okay, so I've got a map, the 3 of us in a vertical column and a big Robert.
Perfect. So what we'll do, and we'll close the map here in just a second, you'll notice on the map, we're at audience table 1, and there's a little camera icon there with a triangle in it. That means we're on the receiving end of that demo stage that's above us. And so is audience table 2 below us. So the general concept, we believe, is breakouts are the natural state of the universe. When you walk into a physical world, you don't sit down at a table of 100, you sit down at a table of 8.
That's right.
That's where things are supposed to start. And that's exactly what we're showing here. These are set up as tables of 6, and you can have hundreds of folks, but they're all then absorbing the virtual Robert. So in this case, Robert is just a demo user up there with no camera on. So if you want to go ahead and close that map up.
And so you're saying all these audience tables, I see like a collection of them have cameras on. You can saying multiple tables could be connected to this demo stage, right?
Exactly. And each of them are having their own conversations while they're hearing and seeing what's happening on the stage.
Got it.
So they can move around the room and all of that. And that audience table two, for example, that's full of demo people. So that's just four more demo folks.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm actually going to jump onto stage. When I'm up there, I'm not going to see or hear you.
Right.
But what I'm going to do is just run through a quick example of, well, what might this look like to have an event in this case? So I'll hide Robert, put myself in, and just give you a quick walkthrough. So I'm going to jump up there right now and do that.
I'll give Alex walk-on music. Here we go. Go, Alex. There he is.
All right. Thank you for that walk-on. So now you'll notice I am replacing Robert. So the speaker or speakers, you can have up to 6 of us who are on stage at any one time. Robert is still here. I just hit him. If I bring him visible, he's here next to me as well. So we'll put him away. But what I can do up here, so the first thing is if you were coming into an event, for example, or a meeting, well, you wouldn't be looking at me. You'd be talking with other people at your table. So I'm going to flip the stage to audio only mode. And now it's just you're seeing the people at your table and it lays out appropriately. Next, I'm going to bring in some actual content here. And I'm going to do that by bringing myself in. And I just put a YouTube video in below us. And it's playing through a video loop right now. Anything that's web frameable, iframeable, so Vimeo video, YouTube, Miro whiteboard, we can actually bring into the experience. But then as I'm doing this, I can actually then click and say, but I want you to focus on me right now. That video is now hidden. We've switched to me. And then I can switch it over to the content and give a little bit of a voiceover while I'm doing it. So incredibly simple production controls. I can share my screen, do the exact same kind of thing. Actually, everybody up here can share their screen at the same time, and you can switch between them as well. So we tried to make this really, really simple so that anybody can produce and not need all of the major equipment that you and I both have had historically around ourselves here as well. So with that, I'm going to put the stage back into audio only mode and join you back at the table.
And he's back.
Well, again, we tried to make it really simple to have not the super level production controls that you've got. You create amazing events and experiences, but for the average person to take it beyond, I can share my screen.
Yeah, this is one of my other Microsoft concepts I learned, which is called lowering the bar. What I mean by lowering the bar is like when we used to make jokes when Bill Gates came out with object-oriented basic, right? Like Windows, you know, and then he turned out he was right because he quadrupled the number of developers for Windows by making it so that you can program in BASIC in Windows. And so it turned out to be a genius move. And it's called lowering the bar because before you'd have to know C and C++ and all these Windows programming. Mm-hmm. And now we drop the bar down here. And now, you know, a whole new collection of people can do things. And producing is very much the same way. You know, there's only, you know, a very few of us producers who can produce at this level. But if you can push the skill down to, you know, where everybody can do it, or a good portion of people can learn how to do it, then you're going to get a whole nother group. Right.
I totally agree. And that's where that simplicity driver really comes in of how do we make this easy? Again, virtual, back to that augmented reality, virtual shouldn't be hard. It should be as easy as the physical world or easier. And well, that's where we've really tried to lean in on that.
Alex, you'll love this part that I've been telling people too, which is like, it's not your fault. Right? Like if you still get yourself caught on mute, I'm like, I've been online for 35 years and I still get caught on mute. And I just tell people it's not your fault. And what I mean by that is that this stuff is still not yet designed. So it's, it interfaces with us as humans in a way that we recognize all the time. It takes training. And so this is where technology now can start to catch up. It recognize what the problems we have as humans, try and get rid of them and make it, you know, more intuitive. Right, where you don't need a user's manual to use this stuff. Right, I
totally agree, and that is a big driver for us. Is how do we every version we want to make sure we're taking more friction out of just how do we make it easier for people to interact. And some of the things I'm excited about in the future are, you know, being able to have a conversation like this is really interesting because we have to do this. Well, what happens in the future for that sales call or a presentation where, you know what? Apple's done a great job of baking machine learning into everything they do on the phone. what until we can put some things here and actually do a little bit of sentiment analysis on, is my message landing? Is John with me? Is he smiling? Is he frowning? Am I talking too much in this conversation? And I need, from a conversation equity perspective, to ask some questions. Just those kind of aids are going to make it easier and easier for people to lean in.
Speaking of which, my good friend Nicole is also tuned into this program too. We got like a great audience here. She said,
Hey, Nicole.
sharing screen with higher performing programs in real time like Photoshop and Lightroom most of the time is not possible, very challenging. She said that she misses the chat and social time between people. That social time is something that's so important. Nicole's actually a big fan of our happy hour as well as our karaoke, which is when we get to do some of that. We actually, my happy hour rules is that there's no topic, there's no agenda. We almost never record, we almost never live stream. And that's it. That's the only rules for happy hour. It's just
and that's a great way to do it, because that's the other part. When people have switched to recording every single meeting, there's a lot of stuff you're not going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so that is a barrier to psychological safety. Although, Alex, you'll love this one, right? One of my very good friends had a misbehaving group at her company. And without saying anything, she turned on the record. Right. And then you get the message. This message or this meeting is now being recorded. Right. You get that message. And magically, these two people stop being not nice.
That's a really interesting effect. And that right there is a perfect example of a problem that has zero to do with technology, other than the fact that people need to actually learn, how do we interact with each other? It's the same thing we had back in the old days of the internet trolls, and how do you not be a jerk via email or read emotion that's not there into it.
Yep.
We've got to do the same thing here.
Yeah. Another factor of human experiences. All right, let's see. Are we going any other place, or is there anything else here that you'd love to show?
Let's see. Well, you know what? Actually, you were jumping to it before, but I'm going to save the event floor for a future conversation. But what we did, so for example, the stage that you saw up there and that audience table, we actually tried to take that even farther and make it really simple, because I'm a huge believer that when there's some kind of a presentation going on, how do we make it interactive with people beyond the chat? Yeah. And that's been one of my motivators, because the chat, if we had it in here for as an example, is like me checking my email while we're having a conversation. It's a distractor. So one of the things that we did, and I will show you an example here, is the light bulb button down at the bottom right. When I do that, I can throw an emoji into the room. So I can put a little that into my video itself there.
Oh.
Exactly. Or I can share a thought.
What?
Not a chat. I just shared a thought, my email address, right into the video. And then if I missed it, I can click on the light bulb on that video. Now it's ephemeral. It's only the last one, but I can copy it now. So people kept asking us for, how do I share an email address? How do I share a link? Perfect. That's a perfect use for chat. So what we did is we really tried to dissect chat the same way we did everything else. And they wanted to share an emoji, or they wanted to share an address.
Is that clickable?
It is not clickable, because that's a security challenge, but it is copyable, and then I can go paste it into something.
Oh, fascinating.
So it's a great way to share contact info otherwise, and just let me be in control, but it's in the conversation with us. So we are still evaluating, because there are perfect uses for chat in other ways. How else can we bring that into this experience, not in a separate isolated window? So that's to come.
I love, like in the social experiment, which they talked about, they talked with the designer who created the like button in Facebook, right? And like this share a thought thing is like, I haven't seen this in any platform. Have you seen this take off in any of your beta programs? I'd love to hear, like, if you've ever seen share a thought used in a way you didn't really intend, but really loved.
That is a great question. So far, it's been used for the things that people wanted to use it for, which specifically was sharing an email address or a LinkedIn link.
Yeah.
The emojis, people obviously have fun with the emojis. In terms of anything unexpected, not yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen, because that's one of the things I love about having a platform like this. We're trying really hard not to tell people how to use it. Think of it as a physical office space. You use it how is going to make sense to you. And in doing that, we've had people take the space over on the left side. Some people convert it to an office. Some people convert it to an auditorium.
Yeah.
We've had other people actually build a business workflow into the rooms, and people move through the rooms depending on where the business workflow was currently at that time. I love that idea.
Oh, yeah, especially with knowledge workers,
Exactly.
you could be there, and you could also, of course, be project based, right? So you jump into the room when you're working on projects, and then jump into another room who's working on the other project, and now everybody in the context of the room, right? Everyone is on the same page. One of my good friends, Kathy Armias, invented just one word, which is she asked a group of like 50 people to debrief in a short amount of time, and she had them write it out. Right, this would be cool if you could actually use handwriting. So they came out and did something like this, right? So
Nice.
this is your share a thought is like a version like this, especially if you also added the font capabilities, because that's the other way that people could emote themselves, which is the size of the font, the color of the font, right?
I'm capturing these ideas onto the list. Thank you.
Because I think that's one of the things that goes along with it. And then imagine you would have what we call have you ever heard of something called Chatterfall, Alex?
I'm not sure that I have by that name.
So or simulchat, well, like this will be simulthought, which is you ask everyone to write a thought, but don't hit the send button until you tell them to. And then when you hit 3, everybody hits the thought button at the same time. You could have a collection of 30, 40, 50 people sharing their thoughts all at once, right?
No, I like that a lot. And the same thing of being able to provide the number one thing that speakers asked us for was feedback.
Yeah.
Hey, what, again, is it landing? Being able to see those emojis. I can totally see the idea of emojis. So for example, on the map,
yeah,
if you and I are having a conversation and you know what, we got a little bit of a celebration going here.
Yeah.
It would be kind of cool for people in the next room to see on the map, hey, they're celebrating something over there.
Yeah.
Somebody that you would hear shouting in that conference room in the real world. Not the audio way that I think some folks have done it of, well, I can hear them at 20% volume when I'm over here.
Yeah.
It's just distracting.
Zoom just allowed to see those reactions inside of breakout rooms. That's like less than a month old or so. And I love that Nicole was saying, color code your thought bubbles. Now, that's a great idea. Now, also to change the background color, right? For those who are color oriented. I think that's another big win. So yeah, you love that because, you used to do that in the office. If somebody was celebrating a birthday or something, you would hear it and you might think
Exactly.
something's going on. Maybe I should go over and check it out if I'm available.
Exactly. And ideally, if somebody's using this as a virtual office or if you're having a conversation, rather than it saying audience table 1, someone would have renamed that to, okay, what conversation is this? This is Alex and John talking about the future. Oh, that sounds interesting. Maybe I should be a part of that.
Oh, so you have a rename capability then on all the rooms, right?
Exactly. And you can set it with different permissions who can do that. But for a typical team, if you trust your team, let them put the topic in there.
Classic CEO question. What keeps you up at night?
For me, it has been everything that we've talked about. A third of the world gets it. And it's the 2/3 that's what keeps me up at night, of the folks that think, hey, it's going back to the way it was 5 years ago. It's not. That's hard. Those are hard conversations.
I mean, in the work that we did here, literally 20 years ago, I just celebrated my 25th company anniversary.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. By the way, less than 4% of the companies ever get to that part. And my mentor and I tried to start a company 20 years ago called Virtual Teamworks, and nobody bought it. Like for decades, literally for decades, we've been trying to advocate to people that you could do meaningful work on virtual, and nobody got it till March of 2020.
Being ahead of the curve is hard. And that, again, back to it drove IT innovation, but it also forced organizational rethink and just how teams work and think about interacting with each other. Yes, not everybody's there, but many are.
So I mean, you got a big help though, and the 2/3, you still think, even this year, 2022, you think 2/3 of the world still isn't there?
I think I'm being generous with the 2/3. It might be 80% that isn't there.
And what do you see as the number one problems or complaints or whatever barriers?
For me, it's been really interesting, and I'm typically engaging with whether it's tech entrepreneurs or I'll say business leaders who are passionate about their teams. Their teams matter. So they've built that culture. And the challenge is historically, those folks have said, you know what, I'm going to let IT or let somebody from the team pick the next tool. It's missing the recognition that this has nothing to do with the tool. This is about the future of how we actually work. This is about how I propagate culture in a distributed world. That is a leadership C-suite level decision, and it's being abdicated because folks don't realize how serious that is.
And why do you think they don't realize how serious it is? It's like, do they just miss the boat? They don't value it. I'm just trying to figure out where.
Well, it's been really interesting. There's actually been great statistics about organizations that have many gone fully remote, many gone hybrid.
Yeah.
But of organizations that have stressed, thou shalt be back in the office on Monday, Tuesday, Friday, or whatever those dates are, in those types of organizations, it is twice as likely for managers to work remotely and embrace the remote side than their teams. We, the leaders, are not embodying what we're telling other people, and that's not okay.
So you're saying like leadership is not showing the way, kind of thing.
That's exactly it. It's okay for that leader to be remote, but I want my team back in the office.
Yeah,
there's a disconnect.
I know Ariane Huffington, just put a poll out on LinkedIn, and it was 50 or 60% of people see the top benefit of a company right now as being flexible schedule.
And that flex is so important. And the flex schedule we absolutely hear about, and the where am I during that schedule. And those two things have to come together.
Well, cool. Well, let's see. So what do you see? You're already ahead in the future, thank goodness, right? You already love sci-fi, so you're kind of thinking the future. So what are you thinking about? What do you see in the future of virtual? What would you like to see happen? What's in Alex's vision of the future for virtual?
Well, I think again the ideal case is organizations are actually looking at virtual as a strategic differentiator. I had the opportunity to put together something that we call the work from anywhere maturity model, and there's 5 stages to it. Really, actually, I might have that here. I do. Let me throw it up on screen for you.
Bring it up.
And the key for it was, so when we look at stage 1 here, this is the good old days. This is the way it used to be. Then we went into pandemic mode. You had to do virtual. We just had to, and throw a couple of happy hours at it, and the world will be fine. Ugh, I never want to hear that again. Just another happy hour. But then again, this gets back to that, a third of the world-ish. Reality set in that it's going to be different, and the employee experience matters.
Yep.
But then the exciting part is it's strategic. Back to exactly what you were just talking about. People are looking for that flexibility, and whether it's remote or the flex work, and we can build a different kind of team, and we can do business differently too when we embrace this. Which then takes us to, this is the way, another geekism, had to get the Mandalorian in there. Which is, you know what, and again, this is, we're doing it differently. It's about results, not hours in your seat. That's a big leadership change. So to me, the future is we lean more to the right of this, and the tech empowers that. That's the big deal.
Yeah, I would love to hear, Malcolm Gladwell bashed remote work recently, and then the second stat that came around here said that teams were less creative on virtual, which I think I dispute both of those facts heavily. At least
actually, that study, so the Journal of Nature study. I dug into the full study because I was doing some thought leadership. Oh, the data is great. So it's not just it's less creative. Remote, we generate fewer, less creative ideas, but we make better decisions. What the heck does that mean? What do you do with that? But if you dig into the data, actually, here, let me share my screen. It's also in here. Here's that study.
Oh, you did tear this apart.
Oh, yeah. And if you look at it, the key part is look at the picture. The way they did the study was, if you were remote, you're looking down at a laptop and you're typing some notes. If you're in person, you're staring across at the person. if you read the actual commentary, their assessment wasn't that remote caused the problem. It was staring straight ahead and never moving your field of vision. The lesson should have been make sure your virtual office has great stuff so that you can look around, and let's give each other permission in a virtual world to look off camera and not think it's weird.
Yeah.
That solves the problem. So the study has great data. All the headlines are wrong.
Wow. Thank you, Press. Oh, I'd love to hear the rest of that with you sometime. So thank you for digging into that. And that's the best part. Like ever since Zoom fatigue came out, and I experienced it myself, I've been pursuing all the research around it. I have dug into some of those papers, and like the favorite one that almost nobody knows is the word frustrum. Do you know what the word frustrum means?
I do not. I'd like to know.
Frustrum is the triangle that you can validly participate in a virtual meeting. So like if I have a microphone first on the camera, right? Like I get to about here and then I'm off camera, right? Then I get to here and then I'm off camera. So I'm limited in that space. And then if I have a mic, then I'm here. But my frustrum is probably like 1,000 times bigger because I can do crazy things like this, right? Which almost nobody has set themselves up to.
Exactly. You've got the green screen, you've got the space.
Yeah. Right. I've got this space that I can walk out to so that's what's called the frustrum. And they said the frustrum was actually a big piece of why people have Zoom fatigue is because they don't move.
And that same thing, back to that, the less creative ideas, it's, yeah, we don't move, we just stare. Like, no, let's intentionally give each other freedom that, it's okay if I'm off camera a little bit, we're talking, we're brainstorming, great.
Yeah, and then some of my other friends have rigged up cameras for their whiteboard, so they actually whiteboard with the audience.
Love it.
Just things like that. But he's physically up at a physical whiteboard, changes cameras, and does it. And again, that's like top 1%. No, almost nobody's doing that. And so, yeah. So let's do this last piece. If people remember, if you want people to remember one thing from this interview, what do you want it to be?
Building connection and community takes intentionality. You have to do it on purpose. It doesn't happen by accident.
And that's not a pandemic thing. That's been ever since people have been gathering thing, right?
Exactly. We felt the pain during the pandemic, but it's more important now than ever.
Perfect. And if people want to demo this thing or they want to find out a little bit more about you, where do they go, Alex?
So the website is LexGo, LEXGO.work, WORK.
Cool. And then again, do you have some kind of demo or some offer? Can people like?
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to run folks through a virtual tour kind of a thing. And we've also got a free trial. So happy to get folks in. And the key is, again, seeing pictures. We actually got a great video recently about how do you break organizational silos down using LexGo, because that's another key element. But getting in there with a free trial, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for that. Speaking of that, I know we're running a conference too. Again, we'd love to run a conference on LexGo and see what it'd be like. I don't know if you've done that already. I'm sure you have.
There's actually one happening as we speak.
Oh, well, there we go. I have my conference October 18th through the 22nd. We'd love to experiment with other platforms. I'd love to see what's possible. Our conference is in October, but we will be holding another one in 2023. And so, Alex, here's your invite. If you want to come speak at that conference, let me know after this call. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. We've been visiting with Alex Bratton from LexGo. I hope you enjoyed this tour as well as the talk about what technology should do for us. If you didn't hear anything else, remember this single word: intentionality. Thank you, Alex. We'll see you next time.